You exist, you are enough. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of us. Just by being born, you don't ever have to do anything. We are born through a presence and a channel of pure love. And the more that we can remember that, the easier it is to shine that light onto the parts of us that forget. Hi, welcome back to another video, another space. I'm actually in a hotel room in Bangkok right now. My partner and I are spending a few months in Bali, but we needed to take a little trip out so that we could go back in. Bali has been a home base for us, for me, since basically 2019, and my partner and I met in 2023, and we've been doing a lot of traveling, but being called back to Bali more and more. We have such a strong community there and are loving it. So what I want to bring into this episode today is a bit of a personal story that's going to really help you understand subconscious beliefs. And this is a personal story that I think a lot of people are going to resonate with, and it's something that had been alive for me for a long time. Sometimes when I think about my healing anxious attachment journey, it feels like something that's kind of getting to be in the past. It's something that I've really wholly moved through in the last 5 years. And so I'm on the other side of it. I can feel the difference in my body and I can remember things. But when I'm sharing about something that is very fresh and alive, I think you just feel it in yourself and I feel it in myself in a way that feels more alive because it's happening right now. So the point of me telling you this story is so that we can walk through an example of uncovering the deep roots of our core wounding and our core, basically painful or limiting unconscious beliefs. Ultimately, at the very root of it, most of our fear and rooting comes down to the wound of separation. So any fear or thought that we feel alone, that we don't belong, that we are separate from the other is what innately in our primal human being is our fear. So then there's other fears on top of that, which could be the worthiness wound. I'm not enough. There's other layers like father wounds and mother wounds, like the last few episodes, and generational wounds and scarcity wounds or the sisterhood wound. So we all have different flavors within our own pain bodies. And unfortunately, part of being a human is to have a pain body. It's to have a physical body, which has sensational ability. We can touch and smell and hear and taste. And with those privileges comes the hard side of that, which is the pain and the suffering that we are able to feel in this body. So when we start to explore and give space to our own pain body, which is so often the thing that we want to look away from or judge or get away from or definitely not feel, when we can give space to our pain bodies, when we can name maybe the darker thoughts that we have or the fears that we have, then that's when we get to bring the love and the healing. And when we bring it there ourselves, then we will notice that the world is going to reflect that back to us. So we start to gather evidence where we are worthy and we are enough that we weren't seeing before because we were really blinded by this subconscious thing that believed that there was something wrong with us. So I took a shadow work course with a coach named Andrew Pierce, who maybe I've mentioned him before. I've taken some of his trainings, and he mentioned something in that course where he said temporary personal truth. And I love the way that he said that, as a temporary personal truth. I temporarily am identifying with this thing. Let's say your temporary personal truth is that you have anxious attachment tendencies. But it can be shifted because everything can be shifted within our identity and our beliefs. And I may have said this before, but actually, if you really wanted to just decide, you could wake up tomorrow and act like a completely different person. You could do that right now. We have this ability as a human. It would be weird and maybe crunchy and it would probably create tension and people might be like, what's going on? But you could technically do it. You could start acting 10 times more confident or like you are a creative artist, if that's something that you desire. Whatever it is that you want to be, you could technically do it. So that's why all these things are actually temporary and malleable. So knowing that they're malleable allows us to remember that they just need some tweaks, evidence, space, presence, healing in order to shift. So let me bring it back to the personal share that I want to offer you. I went to the gym in Bali and I ended up running into some people that I've known over the last years, which is really nice. And two people on different occasions complimented my physique. And I caught myself in my mind immediately wanting to say like, oh yeah, this is because I got really sick. And the truth is, I had been sick. In the first week that I got to Bali, I had a horrible cough. I was in bed for days, and that's usually not like me. I tend to bounce back quicker. I didn't want to be sick that long. Anyway, I wasn't eating that much. I didn't have that much of an appetite. So the story that immediately came to my head was, oh, this isn't about my fitness or my hard work at the gym. This is simply because I've been sick and I haven't been eating, and maybe I lost a few pounds and that's what they're noticing. So I basically turned their compliment into something negative immediately in my mind. And not only did I make it negative, I made it about being sick. And this is really going to expand in this story. So remember this detail. So I caught myself wanting to say that. I didn't say it because I noticed my mind like, okay, this is a pattern. This is something for me to look at. My identity of being sick. And so as I mentioned, the truth is I was sick, but I've been well. I have been working out more than I have in years. I finally have a really healthy relationship to my body and fitness again. And so actually the truth is that I am in better shape than when they saw me last because I did the work to do that. And I have a long journey with fitness. I used to be very into it. I worked in the gym. I trained off-season hockey players. I know all the exercises. I know how the machines work. Like I have that in my history. And then I got really sick in 2021. And it was a very bizarre, no diagnosis situation where my skin was absolutely peeling off my body everywhere, like eczema gone mad. And it took me a really long time to heal from it and to also figure out what it was causing it. In the end, the reason that it happened was this huge inflammatory response in my body because my cortisol hormone was really messed up. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but basically imagine your skin peeling off for 2.5 years, coming and going from waves. You didn't know what was going on and that you were on fire from the inside. So because of that, I had some trauma on the other side of it. I was really scared of being in the sun. I was scared to sweat because that would have created so much pain and irritation in my skin during those years. I'm talking like the skin around my eyes was peeling off, my hands, my thighs, my neck, everything bleeding every day. So sorry for the graphics, but just to show you how intense it was. So when I was sick, I had a light bulb moment when I was going through the thick of this, when I was in like the lowness, the sadness, feeling so defeated, so hopeless. I realized all I wanted was for my parents to take care of me. And what I saw in that was a potential that I had manifested this very complex illness as an indirect and very subconscious way to get attention from my parents. Because I had a belief that my parents didn't want to take care of me, or that they didn't take care of me. On a practical level, that's not true. My parents took very good care of me, abundant care of me. I had more than enough, roof over my head, clothes, food, all the things, went to a good school, very taken care of and on a physical level. But my little inner child had an experience where emotionally she didn't feel taken care of. And I didn't feel like I mattered, basically. So now, as an adult, over 25 years later at the time, I had manifested this wound in my body, which is echoing outside of me all the time, manifested into months and months of illness in the hopes that my parents would take care of me. And that was a really big one to work with because I thought, wow, how could this be true that I made myself so unwell on an adult level, on a logical level? I'm like, this is not worth it. I don't need my dad to text me. I don't need money. Like, please, this is not what I want. On a mental level, I was like, no, this is not worth it. But on a physical level, I could see that in my pain body, in my emotional wounding, this actually made perfect sense. So since that happened and that kind of wrapped up, I continued to have weird symptomatic things. I was getting eye migraines for a while after that. I was getting vertigo in another 1 year period. It was always these elusive things. And I really had to ask myself a hard question, which is, what are the benefits of these things happening to me? Because this is part of shadow work. If I'm experiencing something I don't want, and I ask the question, how is this working for me? If I'm experiencing sickness, how does that work for me? One of the ways that it really worked for me was that it gave me permission to rest. Something that I would never give myself unless I was sick, something that I never saw my parents give themselves unless they were sick. And even if they were sick, it was for like maybe one day. Even still, my dad would probably go into his office and then rest after lunch or something. So being sick worked out for me because my body was actually craving rest. My burnt out body was craving rest. So let's bring this back to anxious attachment style. Let's try and keep it on brand, big picture. Why might anxious attachment be working for you? Why did it work for me? Why did dating avoidant partners actually work for me? This is a great question to explore for yourself. Why did these partners work for me? So in my case, dating avoidant partners actually protected me from having to open up because I could focus my energy on fixing them and saving them. They were always the problem. I didn't have to be the problem because their behavioral aspects were always so much more clear, like bad behavior, that I could hide that I had poor boundaries or that I was doing some subtle emotional manipulation because they had more overt or obvious ways of being, quote, the problem. So those are some ways that it worked for me. And this is just to highlight how these things can be really convoluted. So because of these years of being sick, everything happened with my skin, which was a big inflammatory response, which was really taxing on my immune system. Then my immune system was low, and then I was like getting these infections, and then I had to take antibiotics for the infections, which I tried not to, had to. Then those antibiotics were ruining my gut health, which was further ruining my immune system. So that took a long time to build up, and I kept getting sick. So I now had this story that I am a sick person. And I can see that this path also leads to autoimmune disease. That's where I was kind of headed. My mom has an autoimmune disease, and it's just not the direction that I want to go to. So it's really important for me to be very connected to my body and conscious of my body and conscious of the thoughts and the emotional stuff that's in my body, and make sure it's getting processed and released so that my body can find balance and harmony. And I have been keeping an eye on this experience, right? Because it's really prevalent in my life. I'm asking a lot of questions about this. What's my story of being sick? How is it benefiting me? Am I creating this? What do I actually want? How can I get these needs for rest, for example, met in a healthier way so that it doesn't leak out in this crazy, unconscious, creating sicknesses way? So what happened in the gym in that moment was me being like, oh damn, I'm still attached to this identity, even though it's not the truth. And that showed me that there's something else even deeper here. So as I was reflecting on that and sharing with my partner and kind of feeling sad that this was still looming around in my space because I felt like I had done so much work to build up my identity as a well person, I realized that the layer beneath the identity of I'm sick was a belief that sounded like there's something inherently wrong with me, like my existence is just wrong. And that's a belief that doesn't permeate a lot of my decisions. It doesn't permeate my energy on an outward level very often, but it's something that's in there, you know? It's one of these, as I said, core human wounds that we are all susceptible to because of our society and our communication, all these things that I mentioned in other episodes. So wow, when I saw this part of me, this really young, innocent, hurt, confused part of me, we're talking inner child stuff now, that believes that my existence is somehow wrong. Oh, it was like this horrible, horrible, deep grief in my heart for that part of me. Because again, another part of me that has done this work and is more emotionally intelligent and grounded and centered can know that that's not true. That part of me believes that just because I exist, I am enough. Just because you exist, you are enough. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of us. Just by being born, you don't ever have to do anything. We are born through a presence and a channel of pure love, pure acceptance, and pure belonging. You are made to be on this earth, right? That is just our birthright. And the more that we can remember that, the easier it is to shine that light onto the parts of us that forget and that are deeply hurt. And so much of this healing journey is really about remembering who we are, and who we are is what I just said, beings that are fully accepted just because you are. Just because you are. And you've probably heard other teachers say that. You'll hear me say it more. And I know that one day it's going to click. And maybe this is the day that it's clicking right now. And there's something in your mind being like, wait, that feels true. That feels like a truth for me. I hope that this is the thing, because the moment it clicks, it's like so much illusion just shatters around us. So one part of me has access to that firm belief that I am worthy as you are worthy, and I am whole just because I'm born. I know that that's a truth. And there's another hurt part of me, confused part of me that didn't remember that. And that was the part that I had to tend to. My partner reminded me of something that was in the air of my childhood. And that was that my dad wanted sons. And he got 3 daughters before he got his boy. And while it was never directly said to me, like, I wish you were a boy, it was never like that. It was a vibe. And the reason is because my dad is a farmer. And the chance of daughters versus a son being a farmer, you could just imagine that it's likely more men than women. There's just more men in agriculture. It doesn't mean that girls can't be farmers. In fact, both of my sisters actually work on the farm now. But you can just imagine, right? So there was this vibe. I wish there was more boys. We need to keep trying for a boy. We're trying again for a boy. You know, they had more kids in order to get a son type of thing. And that was just, it was a tone. You know, my dad would have never been like, I wish you were a boy. But it was in his subconscious, and therefore I could feel it. So what does that manifest in that little kid's mind is, well, my existence is wrong because I'm not a boy, I'm a girl. And that is huge for a kid to have to try and reconcile with. You literally can't. You can't reconcile that with your child context mind. And so it could be pointing to something really big in my body that says my existence is wrong. And how can I ever win at life if I believe that my actual existence is wrong? So what comes after uncovering something like this is just what you would imagine and how you would imagine treating someone else or a child that's having this experience of grief and upset and feeling lost and confused. It's bringing a lot of self-compassion, self-love, self-presence, so that that part can feel seen and heard and understood and loved, and then heal. Then the healing that can happen through that, it's like it flies through the timeline of your life at light speed, because we've brought our awareness, our conscious awareness, to this wound. And when we bring our adult awareness with acceptance back in time to this wound, and we can connect to this part of ourselves that's living out the loop of the wound. And I can hear that she's saying, I feel like I'm always doing something wrong. I'm not understanding. I feel like I'm not getting it right. There's something wrong. This is what her discourse sort of sounded like. And I can see the bigger picture. So I explain, I ask her questions, and I ask her, this is inner child work now, right? Hey, can you feel me here with you? If you're doing this, probably going to get a yes. Okay, what does she want you to know? What does she want me to know? And then she'll share her reality, her experience. I feel like I'm always getting it wrong. I'm scared to make a mistake. Even if this is just technically an innocent comment passing through my awareness when I was young, like from my parents or from my dad, it hurt this little child. It wasn't intentional, but this was the experience. The child doesn't necessarily have whatever was reality. It shouldn't be trauma. It wasn't that bad. You know, like it's what your body internalized based on the experience. So we're here to just hear this part out. Then I'm going to ask her what she needs. And then the most important part of this is giving myself evidence and showing her what life is like now. So I get to kind of catch her up on life. This is what happens. This is the resources we have. This is a relationship that I have with my parents now. This is how much love I have in my life. This is how much acceptance I have in my life. And then I asked myself a really big question, which was, what if I wasn't getting it all wrong? What if I was getting it all right? What if every decision that I made was actually correct and perfect and exactly how it was supposed to be? Can I just try that on? can I just pretend that's the truth? And I closed to that, and there was tension in my body, and I was like, that's probably not true. But then I just breathed and I opened up to it. What if there was some checklist for your life, for my life, and I had done it all perfectly? And the same for you if this is resonating with you. What if you had done it all right, and this thread of wrongness and doubt that we've weaved through everything, what if it was just all right and perfect? And I thought, wow, if that's the truth, then I wasted a lot of energy trying to get it right and make things right and make things perfect. I wasted a lot of energy on overthinking and doubting my decisions. And so it became a very liberating thought. If I could look at those people that I dated, the choices that I made, the places that I moved to, even the ones that I didn't like, if those all led me to exactly where I'm supposed to be, which is this moment now, this deep healing moment that I'm having, not necessarily while recording this, but in this experience with this inner child, this part of my inner child, if that was the point of all of this, so that I could feel the liberation that I can feel right now in this healing somatic practice, of course it was, because I survived it all, and it's brought me beautiful places in my life. All of my decisions have brought me beautiful experiences, beautiful friends, and so I was able to look at reality from like a different perspective. So you can take out of this an example where you can take yourself through the same thing. You know, what am I making these things mean? And let me actually try and summarize it from a practical place so that you could do this. So first thing was that I had a problem, right? The problem was that I was sick. I was upset about being sick for a long time. Then I decided to take responsibility. And so taking responsibility is a big choice. You don't have to go that far, but I was basically like, this is all my responsibility because what else can I do? So that requires getting curious. When we can get curious about a situation, that's a way to get clear on what's happening or get some information, because now I'm no longer in the victim side of it. I'm in the curious side of it. The curious comes down to, or a way to get curious is, how is this benefiting me? This is shadow work stuff, little confronting. Specifically, what need is this meeting? What need is this problem meeting? My need to be taken care of, my need to rest, my need for love, my need for attention. How can I meet that in other ways? Where is it actually already being met in other ways? And am I willing to do something about this right now? You don't have to be willing, but you have to know if you're willing or not. That self-honesty is super key to making any transformations. We have to know whether we're willing or not, because if we're more comfortable staying where we are and the change feels too scary and we're not going to do anything, that's okay. That's the truth. Maybe we try something else or a different perspective or a different question. So am I willing to change, basically? And this wasn't part of the story that I shared, but my change point came when I realized my relationship to fitness wasn't getting better. My fear is winning. My fear of getting sick again is winning. And now when I work out, I end up tweaking my neck or getting dizzy or getting nauseous. And I know that my body's in a fear response. And I need someone to help me regulate my nervous system around this. So I hired a movement specialist because I had a lot of pain and I had some previous injuries, and he had a lot of experience with mindset work as well. And he helped me understand my body's not attacking me. I am not inherently broken in my body. I am strong. I am resilient. And that gave me the encouragement because I invested my energy in a different reality. I invested in the reality that I could be strong again because I trusted this person and I saw the potential and I knew it could be my truth. But my temporary personal identity was that I wouldn't be a fit person again. So I invested literal money, I invested my time, and I broke the pattern. And now I can catch that in real time and choose a different way. I can choose to move my body in a way that is supportive for what I need that day. I can choose to move my body in a way that is supportive to where I am in my cycle instead of what I used to do, which was just push through super hard workouts to try and be an intense person. So that's just a sort of sidebar intervention. Sorry if this is getting a little convoluted. And the final piece, which didn't come until just recently, was looking at it deeper and asking, what am I making it mean? What am I making it mean that I'm a sick person? Ultimately, I was making that mean that somehow my existence was inherently wrong, and that was a place that needed healing. So this takes you on the journey of uncovering something that is surface level, the problem we interpret, all the way down these deep, deep levels of the subconscious into the core wound. And when we meet the core wound, it's very important to bring, you already know because you've been listening, love, presence, compassion, patience, gentleness. And sometimes we have to do that over and over until that part of us feels and receives and reorients to love being available, to being safe, because just like with a child, you can't just be nice to them once and then they're going to be great and happy forever, right? We have to continue to tend to these tender, young parts of ourselves, and that can be a lifelong experience in some ways. We can really mature these parts of ourselves. Like I said, this healing can kind of trickle into the timeline of your life. And at the same time, we have tender parts of ourselves that don't always have to be young, but there will always be precious parts within your heart that need your love and attention and sensitivity. And the core of who you are needs you to take care of her for your whole life. One of the most important relationships you're going to have is having the relationship with your own inner being. And that's what I really invite people to devote themselves to. That's what real self-love is, or self-acceptance. It's like being able to feel, what is my soul asking for now? What is my heart asking for now? It's going to shift and change. What is my capacity right now? What are my boundaries now? How do I want to be nourished now? What do I want to experience now? So it's a day-by-day relationship. And sometimes before we can get to that day-by-day, moment-by-moment communication, we need to go back and heal the past and work on self-trust and uncover some of these wounds. So to tie a nice bow on this, I would love to hear from you how this story landed. Did it make sense? Does it feel too esoteric? My Instagram handle is in the description, so would love to hear from you there, or in the comments below is even better. And if you want a couple practices and exercises to go deeper on a couple things that we talked about, there is one somatic healing guided practice in Becoming Secure, which is my program. And if you want to go a little bit deeper with some practices that are built for you to apply basically everything that I talked about here into your own personal journey inside Becoming Secure, my women's group, where you pay month-to-month access. You can stay for 1 month or 2 or 3 or leave at any time. Super accessible. There is a practice called Healing the Triggers and the Wounds that Cause Them. And that's a somatic based practice where you start to do this exact work that I was explaining that I was doing to uncover these inner, deeper truths. On top of that, there's also most likely a workshop in there still. I keep the workshops for the members for 6 months at a time. So there's a workshop called The Language of the Body, and that's a really good 90-minute full immersion experience if you're interested in the mind-body-soul connection, if you're interested in sort of everything that I went into when I was having the skin and the actual physical symptoms. So I didn't heal any of that with medication. I healed it all through my connection to my body and through natural intervention. So if that's more your cup of tea, that's going to be in there for you as well. And when you join Becoming Secure, you're going to hear from me personally right away. You're going to be able to join some live calls and also have a specific plan laid out for you with the somatic exercises that I think would be best for your healing path. And once you start to go through these practices and you take them into your life, you're going to be saying, like the other members, how did I not know this sooner? Why didn't they teach this in school? This would have made things so much easier. I feel so much better in my body. And those are the tools that I want you to have, because it is understanding that information and those body-based practices that have allowed me to process this deep thing, something that I could have never done years ago. I would have never even realized what was going on. I would have never thought any deeper. I would have just been like, how is this happening to me? Spewing out my stories and my language and my limiting beliefs without even realizing that we have so much more control than that. We have so much more creatorship than that. And I want you to know that and embrace that and have the tools for that. So as always, sending you a lot of love. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Hope to meet you in Becoming Secure on school.com as well. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.